he adds other little similar like flourishes throughout the tune, and they're always commanding my attention. If I had a dime for every time I thought, what the hell is he doing there? To have a good 60 or 70 cents. Hey everybody, welcome back to another installment of the Audiophiles. My name is Andy, and the fellow over there is John. John, how are we doing today, buddy?
Yeah, comme ci, comme ça.
Okay, fair enough. Is it true that you've got a song in the works for us today?
Yes, it certainly is.
So,
yeah, because that's the whole bloody point.
You got it.
So I've got a tune for you. I won't spoil it by commenting. So the band is called The Passions.
Okay, The Passions. I don't think I'm familiar with them.
No, you won't be.
Okay.
And the song is "I'm in Love with a German Film Star."
That makes two of us. All right. Let me go off and give this interesting titled song.
I mean, just
listen.
Marlene Dietrich's, right? Who else? Who else can you think of as a German film star?
Fair. Okay, let me go off and give it a listen. I'll come back and let you know what I think, man.
Wunderbar.
Jawohl. I love that guitar bit. It was great. These powerful, sort of resonant chords being struck to start things off. And now you have this little bit of melody that's being added by this other guitar part. And it's very fun. It's got this like tinkling kind of effect where it's almost like it's obviously a sound, right? And yet there's this visual shimmering quality to the tone, particularly in this melodic bit that's just been introduced here. And I find that so effective and interesting how music can, and we've talked about this before, and some of y'all have even mentioned it in the comments before, where it's interesting how music can connote visuals or even other senses, and how there's this sort of synergy or Venn diagram thing happening where two senses can overlap, and this is evoking that feeling in me. Just hearing that the brightness, it's almost affecting my eyes as if it's blinding, but in the best way, right? So yeah, let's press on.
Sitting in a
I like that. I like that a lot. So yeah, there's this like this continued lovely pitch to the guitars. I don't know if there's like a slight delay or chorus that's causing this kind of, again, we've heard this recently with this sort of cascading sound, as if it's mimicked. And I really really like that sound a lot. I also thought it was interesting. The first verse, she's talking about seeing the German film star in a pub, but then when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting because, like, usually the dynamics of falling in love with any kind of film star in love is through watching them in their medium. But here it is like an actual, tangible, physical encounter. Then in the second verse, she drops that I saw in a film once or in a movie, and that was funny because I was like, why? I thought that's, but yeah, everything lined up there. That makes total sense. Yeah, this is really, really good. The bass is so damn easy sounding, but its tone is rich and it's just plodding along there, ever present. So I'm not floored or wowed by it, but I like it. It's adding like some excellent depth to the song, especially when there's all this high, fun, pitchy stuff happening. To still have the kind of plugging away is pretty sweet. Wait. What is that sound? Oh, I mean it's guitar, right? But I love it. I wasn't expecting it. Oh, this is cool. Short little number though. All right. Okay. Yeah, simple song in its construct. But I liked the little bits. I mean, the guitars, right? The guitars are really what captured me. There wasn't any crazy flourishes on the drums. Nothing like that would connote any heavy lifting by the bass. But I really, really, really enjoyed all the fun effects, tones, and frankly, the music that was being played was lovely as well on the guitars. So yeah, good tune. She had a pretty voice. Interesting story. I think I heard a repetition of the verses, but John can verify that for me when we go over lyrics. Let's get back to
Anyway,
him.
so what did you think?
Oh man, I overall I enjoyed the song. I liked it a lot. There was nothing about this song that I didn't like. There were parts of it that I thought could slightly be enhanced, and there are other parts that I thought were wunderbar. as you would say, or as the German would say. So it starts off with this resonant and crisp guitar, like these guitar chords that kind of ring for a little bit, and they're really bright, and I like the sound of them. They're a little bit, there's a little bit of mystique in them that kind of like begs the question, what's to come? Um, but then the drums kick in, and you're left with the drums and this really plotting bass line behind it or accompanying it, and the guitars shift from this resonant stuff to more melodic, kind of like playful, like almost playful little
Yeah.
melodic lines that are, I loved. There, that was probably my favorite part of the whole, and they feature a
It's that
lot.
first sort of minute and a half is he does all sorts of little turns, doesn't he?
Yes, but as the song progresses, he adds other little similar like flourishes throughout the tune,
Yeah.
and they're always commanding my attention. If I had a dime for every time I thought, what the hell is he doing there, to have a good 60 or 70 cents. So it was like I really, really enjoyed what was happening with the guitar there. So it's the drums kick in along with the plotting bass work, and the guitar's doing all this lovely, like mostly higher registered melodic bits, and now the rhythm section is fully introduced as well. And it's at this point, with all the instruments coming together, that I feel I'm like firmly ensnared in a British post-punk new wave sound, probably first half of the 80s would be my guess. So I noted in the reaction that the sounds and the tone being generated by the guitar are almost creating this, and we've talked about this before. There's been songs that have done this for both of us and before, and some rather recently, but this creating the synergy of both my auditory and visual senses, where I can almost see the brightness of the tone. And at times it's like this, there's like this pulsating light, and that's probably what's adding to the pulsating nature, is probably that rhythm section that's fortifying the brightness of the guitars. So it's kind of all working hand in hand. And it kind of reminded me, and I know our metaphors are beaten to death here, but it kind of reminded me of when you look at a really vivid star in a clear night, and you can see that the light is moving because it's gas, right? Like gas is making that light, so you can see the movement. Whereas if you look at a planet, it's a stagnant light. There was like movement to this light, and I really, really loved it. It put me in a really, really good mood hearing all this. Like, just when those moments happen, I just adore it, and it happened in this song. And I think it's safe to say that provided the sound that I picked up on this, there's some sort of delay or chorus pedal, and likely at times it sounds like a volume pedal, because it sounds like it comes in waves. The volume does. And again, we did this song recently where there's this like cascading type of sound to the guitars, and that's happening again here. So I really, really enjoyed that. It sounds like the narrator is encountering the same German film star, both in public at a bar and through the film in which they feature. And it seems, no matter the locale or the nature of their encounters, that she is quite in love. I particularly inferred this from the repeated "I'm in love" as the song came to an end. But I thought it was funny. It caught me off guard because, like, the first verse, and that's another thing I'm going to get into in a minute, but the first verse is this very human encounter in a pub or a bar, where she sees him like oddly dressed in a corner or something like that. And I thought, of all the tropes of falling in love with someone either on picture or in film, which we talked about in Lillian, is there's this I don't know, I thought that that's what it would come from, this sort of like faux love, this romanticizing an image thing. But it was weird that she started with the tangible encounter, then in the second verse did the trope that I thought would have been out the gate with, right? You know what I mean? So that made me.
There is a reason for that.
Oh, awesome! Because I made the observation, and I was hoping it wasn't a superfluous observation, and that there was some reasoning behind it, like there was an explanation for it. But yeah, it's an interesting song. It's interesting because the song is 4 minutes long, or roughly, right? And that isn't necessarily short, but it did feel short. And I don't know if that's because the first and second verse repeat themselves rather
Yeah,
than expanding on like the story as a whole, and rather than just going chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 1, chapter 2, instead of going chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, chapter 1, 2, and 3, with a little bit of added more just musical sections perhaps in between, or making the end longer musically or something like that. But for whatever reason, it felt short,
yeah.
and I'm not
Feels
wholly sure
it feels
why.
short to me as well, actually.
Okay. Because it's odd, because you go four. I could see
Yeah,
if I said that a 2:38 or a
yeah,
3:12
yeah,
song, but this is a 4 minute song, so which is kind of like a decent average. And it didn't jeopardize the enjoyability of it all, but I think for me, if this was a 5 minute and 40 second song, I probably would have said, that's it. That's right. One more verse and some extra musicality, and you would
yeah,
have
yeah,
had, in my estimation, a perfect song. All in all, the women's vocals were really nice. It was like kind of a little airy at times, and it wasn't overdone, and I liked that. You know, that kind of vocal performance like you'd have in like something like Steven Sanchez, or an Adele song, or a Beyonce. Like
yeah.
there's a time and place for that. This wasn't that, and I'm glad that she didn't embellish or go overboard, yet it still sounded really, really nice. um the rhythm section was serviceable, and I don't mean that
Yeah.
as a slight. I think it's understood that they were there to just create this like depth of sound behind all the fun guitar shit that's happening throughout the number. But yeah, again, I think having said that, you understand that the guitars are really the star for this one for me. Lots of fun flourishes played at varying points on the neck throughout the song, so you're getting higher register, a
Yeah.
little lower register, but it's all there and it all fits really well because it's all in the right key. There's these wildly fun echoed sounds, this really interesting picking syncopation at points, and just these bright as light tones that really captured my attention. So yeah, this one, I don't know. I give it like an 8.8. You know what I mean? Like this is it was a solid B plus song for me, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Which is kind of interesting
Oh,
because like new wave, like not new wave revival, because for whatever reason, maybe it's my own bias, maybe it's some of the things that they carved out when they sort of led it to the next iteration. But some of that early new wave stuff can be a little like hit or ooh miss. Because I love some
mm,
of it, and some of it I just I don't like, and it's usually the more synthy new wave shit that the more divorced from organic rock and roll instruments it becomes, it's harder for me usually to like really wrap my head around. Not to say that there aren't exceptions.
yeah, I'm kind of the same. However, I don't know if it's through osmosis, but there are quite a few synthy tracks from that period that I absolutely adore for some
Yeah,
reason.
I've tried
Whereas
to go
the
through like
rule
a
growing up in the 80s was I hate synth music, that was my mantra, while listening to
good.
Depeche Mode or something. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous. But
yeah,
anyway,
exactly,
so yeah,
exactly.
I picked this because it's a real slice of that sort of early 80s British sound, and there's not much like this, and it is just really a sort of almost a liver section of that time and place and what it sounds like, and it's quite cool. You
It
probably
does seem like an excellent example. Like
yeah,
if
yeah,
you wanted to put it in a time capsule, or someone said,
yeah.
"Show me what this sounds like," and you said, "Here, listen to this track," it
And
kind
it
of
probably
nails it.
because it's also a one-hit wonder, that kind of makes it even more of a sample. Do you know what I mean?
Sure,
Rather than a
absolutely.
And they've done loads of stuff. It's just that nothing else ever hit the charts. So just a bit about the Passions. They were from Shepherd's Bush, London. Went from 1978 to 83. Described as post-punk and new wave, obviously. So personnel. There was a lot of personnel, but for this, I believe it was Barbara Gogan on vocals and occasionally guitar, but not in this one, I think. Clive Timperley was the guitarist. David Agar bass, and Richard Williams drums. So the Passions formed us in early 78 as the Youngsters. And after a name change to Rivers of Passion, they shortened it and soon became the Passions. So they brought out the first single on an independent record label in March '79. And I'll give you the months just so you get an idea of the time scale. It's quite short on this. So yeah, March '79, their first single, and it helped them win a record contract with Fiction Records, who you may have heard of. So their debut album, Michael and Miranda, was released in April 1980. And in May 1980, they embarked on a UK and European tour supporting fellow label mates, The Cure.
Oh.
So yeah, that was in May. By July, the band were dropped by Fiction. So there you go.
Jeez
Went
Louise,
well.
how the mighty fall. What happened there?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I say by July they were dropped. By October, they're signed by Polydor, which is
Oh,
obviously a much bigger name.
yeah.
And they started work on new material. So this track was released in January '81. So it's a really short time scales from jump
Yeah,
to
yeah,
jump.
yeah.
You know. And they reached number 25 in the UK singles charts. And that was their only taste of any charting success. And it was from their second album, 30,000 Feet Over China. This song has been, it's one of these ones that didn't get much traction at the time. I think a lot of people kind of remember it, but it's sort of grown its own stuff over time. And it has been covered so many times. It's unbelievable. A couple of the more notable covers are a band you may have heard of called the Foo Fighters. They've done a version
I've
of
heard
it.
their name bandied about before.
Yeah. It's the first track on their album, which I'm not familiar with, 01050525. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's a live
okay.
album or what, but anyway, that's on there. And another band called Linoleum, which is a British 90s alt indie band, more of which you may hear in a later episode.
Cool.
So, this is their sound, and particularly this track, really, because it's the only one that got anywhere. It was memorable. Her voice is decent, and I think it has a certain atmosphere to it, which lends itself to this kind of smoky, dreamy kind of scenario. It's not like wowzer, but it's decent.
Mhm.
And Clive Timperley's guitar playing, so he's using a thing called an Echoplex. And I looked that up. And the Echoplex, here's a little bit of info for you. It's very rare you get technical detail from me, but so it's a tape delay effect, which was first invented in 1959. And the tape echoes work by recording sound on magnetic tape, which is then played back. Tape speed or distance between the heads determines the delay, while feedback variable, where the delay sound is delayed again, allows for a repetitive effect.
Mhm.
And notable users of the Echoplex are, wait for it, Chet Atkins, Miles Davis, John Martin, Brian May, Steve Miller, Gary Moore, Jimmy Page, Andy Summers, Eddie Van Halen, Neil Young, and Jeff Pluman, who is better known as, if you remember this, I did mention him before, Nash the Slash. He was the guy who performed wrapped in bandages with a top hat.
Yeah,
And
yes.
he
Yeah.
used to run his electric mandolin and electric guitars through an Echoplex to create swirling noises. But enough of that. But anyway, just picture.
That's interesting to me. I wonder, I would have to think maybe someone out there in the listening audience can know. I'm not a guitarist. I've played with plenty of them, many of whom had like echo effect pedals, like, and delay pedals that would essentially, maybe not, maybe with a little bit more constraints and not as much flexibility with what you can do, but would essentially do the very same thing, like
Yes,
create
yeah, I'm sure.
this delayed effect, and you could mess with the timing in between when you're playing and the delayed effect of what you played, so it can be a larger swath of time between the sounds, or it can be very like rapid in succession. So yeah, I wonder if that was just the precursor of the modern day delay effect.
And now with digital, you can do what the hell
Yeah,
you like,
exactly.
And you
But
see
that's
these
really
guys
fucking
performing
cool.
live where they'll perform something, hit their pedal, and it will just keep playing it when they
Yeah,
play something else over the top.
yeah.
It's all very impressive. But there you go. And I think this is it was very striking at the time anyway, in '81. So the lyrics were written by the vocalist Barbara Gogan about a person called Steve Rodent. Rodent is spelled road, ent, So Steve Rodent Connolly, who was a roadie for the Clash and the Sex Pistols, and he had several minor roles in German films. So that's why there's this sort of real life and this, and these are very, very minor roles in very, very minor German films, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
in the late 70s. So I'll go through the lyrics. They're not that complicated, and they do repeat, as you say, the whole thing. I'm in love with a German film star I once saw in a bar, sitting in a corner in imperfect clothes, trying not to pose. For the cameras and girls, it's a glamorous world. I'm in love with a German film star I once saw in a movie, playing the part of a real troublemaker, but I didn't care. It really moved me. It really moved me. And then there's that same first verse again, and it's the same second verse, and I'm in love, it really moved me, really moved me. So there you go. Very simple. So just about
So
how the band grew.
was it a joke or was it sincere?
I don't know if she was in love with him or not. I'm guessing perhaps not, but perhaps she
Yeah,
just
yeah,
thought it was a good idea to
yeah.
sing it. I don't
Funny
know. Or
compliment.
perhaps they settled down and had a whole clan of kids. I have no idea. You know.
That's great.
But anyway, so yeah, the guitarist Timothy left the band uh, during a tour of theirs in late '81. Yeah, they were in Verona, Italy, when he walked out during the Italian leg of their ill-advised named tour, Till We Crack tour. And they did crack.
Mhm.
And he left as a result of, quote, serious political differences. You don't really get that nowadays, do you, as a reason for people leaving a band?
Yeah,
Serious
yeah, yeah,
political differences. It's a very 80s thing.
yeah.
Brilliant. So the band continued, and it had loads of different personnel changes over the next sort of couple of years before they split at the end of. So it was 10 members in all in the band. In a four-piece, that's quite a lot. I think they added like a synth and something else to the mix as well. But the singer Grogan, she stayed until the end, and she explained. This is her words. It's the same old story. Some bands play together for 10 years, and it's all very wonderful and imaginative. More often, though, you reach a point where you've done all you can do and you want to change. Whenever we've reached that point, someone has always left and brought us a step further on. Any band playing their own songs to the public has a duty to change and keep being imaginative all the time.
Mhm.
So that's her viewpoint. They recorded a third album called Sanctuary, which was released in September '82, and they dissolved for good August '93 after playing their last show at London's much marquee club. So yeah, that's the Passions. Little brief moment in the spotlight, and then probably, hopefully, they're getting paid every time it's redone and reworked and shoved on a compilation album and stuff like that. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting slice and something you're not likely to come across, And I think for me, it really is quite atmospheric. It's a very simple song. There's not many working parts to it, but I think with what they've got, they do sort of create an atmosphere wonderfully, and it's the guitar really, and as you say, the drums could almost be, a drum machine quite easily. It's not
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah.
You could program that shit in, and almost with the bass as well. It's just
Oh,
purely, as you say.
yeah,
But
it is.
I heard quite nice vocals that fit it really well, and his guitar work just makes it that little bit sort of interesting and different. It's not a Desert Island disc, but it's definitely fun to listen to
Yeah,
every now and
yeah,
then.
and like as you and I have said now, the guitar work was. I'm glad, if for nothing else, you showed me this just because of the really cool guitar stuff that was happening in this tune.
There you go.
You're right that you could essentially program that bass and drums to do what they were doing, but it was incredibly easy and rudimentary, but it was the tone of it all was really rich. So
Yeah,
it did add a layer. It didn't add intricacy, but it added a layer and depth to the song that that guitar probably needed to be its canvas as her voice. And so it was serviceable. It did its job.
I think it was an interesting time where this sort of stuff was coming through, like, programmable sort of synths and drum machines, but they're still quite expensive. So people still had drummers and bass players and all that sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff because they couldn't afford it. And then fast forward another 2 years, and then people were doing it because they couldn't afford to pay band members and they could do it all
Yes,
from their
exactly. I
keypad.
was just gonna
So it
say, well,
changes because it
yeah,
became cheaper. Yeah.
yeah.
And you had geniuses like Vince Clarke and people like that just doing all that stuff. But there you go. So anyway, I'll wrap things up. thanks for listening to this, Andy, and taking you back to a time before you were born. Um,
Fun
and
ride
folks
with
out there,
DeLorean.
let us know what you think. Have you ever fallen in love with a film star, German or otherwise? We will accept Austrian and Romanian. So let us know. Drop some comments. Tell us what you think about this song, this little one-hit wonder from the 80s. Not to be taken too seriously, I hope, but I hope it brightens somebody's day by listening to this. So if you like this, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, and help us until we can finally have enough members that we can go on a field trip to Marlene Dietrich's grave. That'll be fun. Fun day out for everyone. So I have got some interesting famous musician graves. I'll go into that another time, but anyway. So yeah, thanks again so much for watching, and we will see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you guys.